Page 3 is more so information for the borrowers. The first part of page 3 is what's called the instructions. What it does is covers what their tolerances are for certain fees. The next thing is a trade-off table. I'll go over this in the next couple slides. The third thing is a shopping cart. This is information that the borrower can collect from other brokers or lenders and compare them to the good faith that you have delivered. On page 3, the only place that you'll enter information is what's called the trade-off scenario. HUD does not require this, but we don't know if other lenders are going to require us to do this. Basically, what this form does is it shows the borrower what their loan would be like with lower settlement charges or a lower interest rate. If you're going to show them lower settlement charges, most likely you would have to increase the rate. So you would put a higher rate into the first box in the middle section, and then how much it will change your settlement charges in a percentage in the second box of the middle section. Now, if you wanted to show them with a lower interest rate, you would put the lower interest rate into the box on the last section, and then you would show them their change of how much more their settlement charges would be by putting the percentage amount in the second box in the last section. When it prints out, Point will figure out all the totals as far as payment goes and how much they'll save. Now we need to make adjustments to the old GFE because we have added fees to the new GFE or taken fees off the old GFE and put them in different places on the GFE of 2010. There is now a section under the 1300 section that says total from GFE 2010. The amounts that are put in here, anything that was added to box 3, box 5, and box 6. The items that are excluded from here are the items that carried over from the old GFE to the new GFE. The credit, the appraisal, the pest inspection will not be in this total amount. So what we're going to have to do is figure out which parts we have to give a credit for. Because this amount includes the seller paid items that we had to include on the GFE 2010 to stay in compliance. For instance, the transfer taxes and the owner title policy. Since we don't want to show any fees as paid by seller that are typical fees that the lender would allow the seller to pay, what we're going to have to do is give a credit in the 1300 section. Of the $1,099 that was transferred over from the GFE 2010, of that $825 is credit for the owner's title policy. So what we would do in the 1300 section is put that credit in there. The other thing that you will have to give credit for is for the transfer taxes that you put on the GFE, and those total amounts were $840 in this example. So I said credit for transfer taxes, $840. Now the next thing you're going to have to do to make sure that the closing costs come out correctly is to put the discount that the borrower is getting for the yield spread premium. Where that would go on the old good faith is down on credits where you would usually show like your cash deposit or closing costs paid by the seller. In there was a new drop down. It says lender credit. In there you would put the exact amount of the lender credit that we showed on page 2 in box 2 of the Good Faith 2010. That should even out the customer's closing costs. Because the old GFE is still tied in with page 4 of the 1003, once we've made these corrections, you should be able to show the borrower their correct amount to close. This slide covers the new 2010 service provider that's going to have to be printed out with the new GFE 2010. This does not replace the relationship GFE service provider. This is a completely different form. What this form covers is the suggestions that you have made to the customer regarding companies on services that they have to use in order to get the loan done. So if you have suggested a title company and they use the title company, then you're bound by a 10% tolerance. But if you suggest a title company and they use a different one, then again you have unlimited tolerance. So this is how you will inform the lender of which ones were suggested by you and which ones that the borrower selected. Any fees on here are going to have to be required, so you would always select the required button. But if the borrower selects one that you did not choose, you would select borrower. Now, unfortunately, in this form, in point, it does not auto-populate anything from either the GFE or the GFE 2010. And you cannot use the Cardex system on it. So you will have to manually enter the company name for each section. When the 2010 service provider prints out, it lets the lender know which tolerances you will have on which fees that are required for the borrower to do the loan. Keep in mind though, if you have a relationship with another company, either a surveyor, pest inspection company, or a title company, you should use that as the default company. So if the borrower even had randomly selected that company, you don't get in trouble with the lenders. In conclusion, the thing we have to remember the most on the new good faith is tolerance levels for the certain boxes. Again, some have a percentage of 10%, some have unlimited, and unfortunately some of them have no tolerance. The other thing you'll have to get used to is that YSP is now a credit to the borrower instead of a credit to the broker. And if you are charging them a discount fee, this has to be the actual fee charged by the lender. One of the other important things to remember is if you are in Texas or Florida, you will still have to continue to print out the state-specific mortgage broker contracts, and the other states you will still have to print the broker contract displaying your fees.